not receive its sign of submission, that is, the mark of the beast. Another angel, a second, followed, saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink of the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality." And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and its image, and receives a mark in his forehead or in his hand, he also will drink of the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." Here is the call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. Here we can see that at the end there will be only two groups of people: those who worship the Creator and obey all His commandments, having the faith of Jesus, and those who, drunken by the deception of the apostate church, identified as Babylon, worship the beast or its image and receive its mark. Now, who is the beast? Who is the image of the beast? And what does it mean that the mark is placed on the forehead or in the hand? A diligent study of the scriptures shows that the terrible beast of Bible prophecy symbolizes the Roman Empire, both in its political military phase as Imperial Rome, as in its religious phase during the Middle Ages as the papacy, the highest representative of the Roman Church, which, instead of being the Church of Christ, it has transformed itself into an institution of temporal power, which, under the influence of an alliance between the Bishop of Rome and the Roman Emperor Constantine, prostituted the apostolic faith, making it an instrument of the devil to govern the world. History tells us that up to the 4th century of our era, Christians were persecuted both by the Jews and the Roman Empire. Emperor Constantine was one of their great persecutors. However, seeing that he could not overcome them because the blood of the Christians was as seed that raised up new Christians, he decided to convert to Christianity and to make it the official religion of the empire. He then went from being a persecutor of Christians to being an impostor, one that mixed or syncretized Christianity with the pagan religion of his empire. Listen to what Wikipedia tells us about his character. Constantine, Roman Emperor from 306 to 337. Well known for being the first Roman Emperor to be converted to Christianity. Constantine had returned to Nicomedia from the Eastern Front by the spring of 303, in time to witness the beginnings of Diocletian's great persecution, the most severe persecution of Christians in Roman history. In the likeness of Apollo, Constantine recognized himself as the saving figure to whom would be granted the rule of the whole world. Religious policy. Constantine is perhaps best known for being the first Christian Roman emperor. In February 313, Constantine met with Licinius in Milan, where they developed the Edict of Milan. The edict stated that Christians should be allowed to follow the faith without oppression. This removed penalties for professing Christianity, under which many had been martyred in persecutions of Christians, and returned confiscated church property. Constantine would retain the title of Pontifex Maximus until his death, a title emperors bore as heads of the pagan priesthood. Throughout his rule, Constantine supported the church financially, built basilicas, granted privileges to the clergy, for example, exemption from certain taxes, promoted Christians to high office, and returned property confiscated during the Diocletian persecution. His most famous building projects included the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and Old St. Peter's Basilica. However, Constantine certainly did not patronize Christianity alone. After gaining victory in the Battle of Milvian Bridge, a triumphal arch, the Arch of Constantine, was built to celebrate his triumph. The arch is most notably decorated with images of the goddess Victoria, and at the time of its dedication, sacrifices to gods like Apollo, Diana, and Hercules were made. Most notably absent from the arch are any depictions whatsoever regarding Christian symbolism. Later, in 321, Constantine instructed that Christians and non-Christians should be united in observing the Venerable Day of the Sun, referring to the sun worship that Aurelian had established as an official cult. Furthermore, and long after his oft-alleged conversion to Christianity, Constantine's coinage continued to carry the symbols of the sun. The reign of Constantine established a precedent for the position of the emperor as having great influence and ultimate regulatory authority within the religious discussions involving the early Christian councils of that time. More significantly, in 325, he summoned the Council of Nicaea, effectively the first ecumenical council. In medieval times, when the Roman Catholic Church was dominant, Catholic historians presented Constantine as an ideal ruler, the standard against which any king or emperor could be measured. That is why, today, in the Catechism of the Roman Apostolic Catholic Church, we read the following. Speaking about the Ten Commandments, it mentions concerning the fourth, which figures as the third in the Catechism, because the Church eliminated the second commandment from the Catechism, which prohibits the veneration of images. It reads, "Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work." And it cites a biblical text. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. And it gives the biblical quotes that we have already shared in this video. Then it says, in speaking of the Sabbath, Scripture recalls creation. This is correct, and it cites a Bible text. Scripture also reveals in the Lord's Day a memorial of Israel's liberation from bondage in Egypt, which is correct. The Sabbath was also a symbol of liberation from the slavery of sin. Then it continues. God entrusted the Sabbath to Israel to keep as a sign of the irrevocable covenant. In full agreement. God's action is the model for human action. If God rested and was refreshed on the seventh day, man too ought to rest and should let others, especially the poor, be refreshed. The Sabbath brings everyday work to a halt and provides a respite. It is a day of protest against the servitude of work and the worship of money. So it is. The Gospel reports many incidents when Jesus was accused of violating the Sabbath law. But Jesus never fails to respect the holiness of this day. He gives this law its authentic and authoritative interpretation. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. With compassion, Christ